morning, and good morning again. Happy Saturday to you. What a wonderful day it is to be alive. I am certainly thankful for all of you who have been faithful and diligent in following us in our social media presence. To all of our friends joining by way of Facebook Live, we certainly say good morning to you as well. Those of you who are tuning in by way of our YouTube channel, what an awesome privilege it is to accommodate you as well. And then maybe there's someone who's also dialing in on our phone line. We want to say welcome to you this morning. What a great day it is to be found on the wake up list. And we pause just to say thank you to an almighty God for that privilege. We are here today trying to be diligent in providing you with support and training tools in this thing called life. I want to give you a quick notion on how you can encourage another friend to join in. Maybe you have someone that you want to benefit from this broadcast today. We have a very, very personal topic on today, and I'm hopeful that you will hit that share button or to take this link and send it to someone this morning. We're able to give you this broadcast by way of our Facebook handle, Dr. K.O. Williams Space Ministry. Or you can have the handle sent to someone and they can join by way of YouTube, Dr. K.O. Williams Space Ministry. And if they have just a phone line, you see the number there as well. I want to also draw your attention to the bottom left, your voice, bit.ly/REALTalk, your voice. If you will put that in your web address, you can send us direct communications. You've been diligent on that, and we're responding to those requests. As a matter of fact, we have a new coaching series today as a response from our request line, bit.ly/REALTalk, your voice. I want to remind you, it's just 60 straight minutes. Absolutely. We want to be diligent and good stewards of your time, provide you with some life coaching series. It's addressing life's issues. We have straight, honest, transparent conversation. Absolutely. It's not for kids, because sometimes we go down through there. And so anyone can participate. All we ask you to do is give us a shout out. Hello, good morning, amen, something. Just let us know that you tuned in with us today. I'm going to ask you to help us get the word out this morning. We've been talking about trauma. Man, listen, I have had so many responses from many of you. I get it. We'll probably have to go a little bit deeper in some of the trauma symptoms and also some of the trauma ways that you could have some tools to respond to trauma. I want to thank you for your responses and following up. But listen, if you say good morning, say hello, I promise you, we'll give you a shout out and let everybody know that you're a part of the team as well. Now, listen, today I wanted to be very attentive and announce another topic that has been requested from you, the listeners. And be honest with you, it's one that even the best, if you're not careful, it can slip into this category. What we're going to be talking about, we promise you that we'd bring you some tools around burnout. And this is what this session is going to be. I can tell you already, it's more than one session. And I do have some experts who have already agreed to come and give further tools and also further sessions around burnout. And so let's get started today. I have a PowerPoint prepared for you. What we want to focus in on is warning signs of burnout. Yes, it's one of those things that can come up, slip up, and if you're not careful, find yourself in the struggle of your life trying to figure out why it is you're having these symptoms and also trying to figure out how you can respond to those symptoms. So let's just get started today. I want to ask you to take your pens and paper out, and we're going to give you some resources as we always do. And if for whatever reason, keep in mind that you can go back to the YouTube channel, and these are chronologized all the way back from the beginning. Any of these you can go back and review. All right, so let's look at next slide for us on burnout. Now, let's talk just for a moment on this notion of burnout. I have a medical definition because this is a medically diagnosed illness. That's critical because sometimes people shy away from embracing certain diagnoses because they feel like it's not medically diagnosed. But I want you to know that burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workspace stress that has not been successfully managed. Oh, yes, we're going to go down through there today. It is characterized by three dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, or an increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduce professional efficiency. Listen to this, my friends. Burnout refers specifically to a phenomenon in the occupational context and should not be applied to describe experiences in other areas. What that simply means is every space has its own session. And what we want to focus on today is the ability to look at your space and see, do any of these symptoms fit my circumstance? All right, next slide. And so it's in the medical dictionary. I took this straight from a medical dictionary as well. And they said burnout in its simplest form, in the most basic definition, is exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration. Now, listen, that in and of itself is a recipe for disaster. So we're going to ask you to continue to take notes and then do some assessments. I want you to do some personal evaluations. This coaching series is very personal to the individual. Next slide. And so as we go through these, there's $1 million question on the floor. Which one best represents you? Is it burnout or is it balance? I want you to ask that question now to yourself. Do you feel that you're in a space which best describes you as burnout, or do you feel that you're in a space of balance? That's the real relevant question that really encapsulates this entire session on today. Which one best represents you? If it's burnout, then we have some resources for you. And if it's balanced, then we want to congratulate you and celebrate your ability to put everything compartmentalized in their prospective places. All right. So if burnout is where you think you may be, let's give you a little bit more tools to see if you can help assess and evaluate your space today. Next slide. So I want you to know that there are 8 kinds of burnout. And I want you to go systematically walk this path with me and see if any of these 8 describe your space. For example, we know medically that there is what we call a mental burnout. My mind cannot process anymore. It is fried. I've heard people say, hey, listen, I can't take nothing else. I don't want to hear about nothing else. My mental space is at maximum capacity. My friend, if I'm speaking to you today, then there are some resources that I want you to covenant with me that you will engage, because if you're in a mental burnout, that is a very, very, very dangerous place to be, because what that also does is it opens the door for behaviors that come behind the burnout. We'll talk about those in a second. Secondly, it's a medical place called emotional burnout. These heavy or anxious emotions are exhausting me. In other words, it feels like you're on a roller coaster going from one emotion to the next. And then sometimes there are blurred lines where you're trying to figure out which emotion it really is. They're heavy and they're anxious. And guess what? They will zap your energy. If you're that person that says, Williams, it seems like I can't get a handle on my emotions, I want to talk to somebody today. You've heard me say this, and it's a good place for me to say it again. Because if you go to the state of burnout, your emotions will actually manage you instead of you as the complex human being you were designed to manage your emotions. If you're that person that seems like it's going through blurred lines, you got two or three emotions going at the same time. You're happy and you're trying to feel anxious. You're sad, crying. You're feeling like you're trying to really make sense of it all. But before you can get one emotion in check, you feel yourself having to deal with two and three emotions at the same time. My friend, it is an indicator that you are in one of those 8 burnout stages. Now, listen, there's also compassion burnout. Compassion burnout says, I cannot hold any more loving space for anyone else. I'm tapped out. If you're that person that says, you know what, my compassion is at its limit. I don't want no one else in my personal space. I don't want anyone else in my space that's asking me for any level of compassion, any level of care, any level of understanding. This space, which says that you should be able to look at someone who is in a hardship and at least have compassion on them. Sometimes I find people, they're cold. Listen, it's like shaking hands with a fishtail, because the reality is they're tapped out. I want to talk to somebody today that you can be so engaged until your compassion causes you to have a burnout. And you find yourself saying, I cannot hold any more loving space for no one else. Listen, we are human beings. We are human beings with complex designs. And it is an amazing ability to be able to see that compassion working internally within us and manifesting itself out to someone else. But I'm telling you, I've seen it happen. Good, solid people, but they don't recognize that their compassion is causing them to be in a burnout space. You've seen people, listen, they have compassion for everyone. They're always outgoing and caring. You can easily pick them out of the crowd, because typically, usually, they find a way to see the best in everybody. And then every now and then, if you're not real careful, that same person is showing so much love for everyone else until they get in a state of burnout. My friend, we have some resources for you today. We're talking about the kinds of burnout. We said it's mental. We said it's emotional. We even said it's compassion. What a tragedy it is to say that this person doesn't have the ability to care for anyone else. And then there are what we call medically relational burnouts. I've been over giving to others, my organization. I know people that just give to the job. Some people give to the church. I'm talking good to somebody today. Listen, they give to the family. And then they find themselves, you know what, saying, I'm over it. I cannot be in another relationship. I don't want anyone else asking me to be a friend. I don't want anyone else asking me to do anything around a relationship, because I'm at my maximum capacity. It is as if they're saying that they're a sponge and they are saturated, and there is no more room for anyone and any relationship. My friend, that's a dangerous place to be, because that brings on some other behaviors. And so let me make sure I'm going slow enough to articulate that there are 8 kinds of burnout. Number 1, it's a mental burnout. Number 2, the person's emotional burnout. Number 3, it's a compassion burnout. And then number 4 is a relational burnout. But I got some others that the medical community has identified as ways of being burnout. There's a 5th one called survival burnout. I'm exhausted from trying to make ends meet and stay afloat. Who am I speaking to? This pandemic has caused so many to be pushed to the limits, to the extremities, until some people say, listen, if one more thing happened and I got to try to figure out how to be the problem solver in the group, I got to figure out how to be the glue for this particular situation. Listen, I'm tired of being the one who has to try to make ends meet. I'm talking to somebody today. Listen, every time you turn around, there's something, some way that you got to figure out how to make ends meet and to stay afloat. Don't sleep on that, because sometimes it's not even about anything but saying, hey, listen, if one more thing happened, I'm going under. And I'm telling you right now, we are complex built humans, and it is a mystery on how we have so much reticence about us, and resilience and tenacity. Yes, we are intrinsically built by a higher power to be able to bounce back. Listen, we are humans. We've seen it happen time and time again. A natural disaster comes like a pandemic, causes the whole entire world to come to a screeching halt. And yet somehow 3 to 4 years later, we're still above water. It is because we are intrinsically built with the bounce back power. But as individuals, if you're not real careful, you can find yourself saying, if one more thing happens, I'm telling you, it's going to take me under. It is an indication that you are at a survival burnout. But I got good news for you. There are some resources to help you. You can make it and you will stay afloat, but you have to at least acknowledge, first of all, that you're in a survival burnout. I want to talk good to somebody today. Listen, you've been the major decision maker in that space that you're in, even on the job. You know, you're that person, you're the go-to person when something goes awry. And at some point you see yourself slipping and saying, if one more thing happened on this job, I tell you right now, I'm walking away from it. I'm telling you, my friend, you need to recognize that you're struggling in a survival burnout. There's even another space that's been identified as what's called the superwoman burnout. The weight of taking on so much is too much. I cannot hold it all anymore. It's the same thing. We call it the Superman burnout. Basically, what it's saying is you have this burden on you. It's called the weight. Now, listen, be clear about one thing. We cannot control the trauma. That's what we were trying to lift up in the previous sessions, that life happens, right? And then there are traumas that happen. We cannot control them. And if you're not careful, you will find yourself being the one to say, I'll take the weight for that. I'll take the weight for this. I'll take the weight for the other. My friend, at some point, you will find yourself being the super person burnout. For the woman, you become that superwoman. And for the man, you become that superman, trying to be that person, to be the glue, to be the problem solver. Listen, all those things are wonderful. And if God is giving you those skill sets, that is absolutely wonderful. But you have to be careful that sometimes the weight, WEIGHT, you know, just like I do, that you can only sustain so much weight on your shoulders before your legs start buckling or even collapsing. And that's what we wanted to talk about. It's a wonderful picture when you see someone who is gifted and crafted enough to be able to take on the weight of so many. Oh, I cannot tell you. about the leader in a group, or I can even go further and talk about being the matriarch in the group. And sometimes you feel like, oh, I got to take this on so that everybody else can make it through. And I want to stop and give you pause enough to understand that in this life, there's not but so much weight you can put on your shoulders before the knees start buckling. Hear me good when I say to you today, it's wonderful to take on the weight, but you got to know when the weight is causing a burnout. And you know it's a burnout because you come to that place and you make statements like, I can't hold it all anymore. I can't take on no one else's burden. I can't solve no one else's problem. Listen, it's being that superwoman or that superman. And at some point, that weight has its breaking point. Well, I want to talk even further. Can we go just a little bit further today? And not only do you have a mental burnout, not only do you have an emotional burnout, not only do you have a compassion burnout, you also can have a relational burnout. I want to submit to you that you can have a survival burnout. And as you just heard, you can also have the superwoman, superman burnout. But there's yet even another as we plunge just a little bit deeper in these 8 kinds of burnouts. Number 7 is a passion burnout. Oh, I've seen this as a local pastor. I cannot tell you the number of times I see good, solid Christian disciples, and they have a passion to do the work of ministry. And then every so often, you see those good people just fizzle out. They have a passion burnout. I love what I do. You know it. Listen, they do it without any hesitation. But I've given too much and pushed too hard. I've seen people go to length in ministry, and then all of a sudden you say, well, what's wrong with them? They don't serve like they used to. It's simply because sometimes you experience what is a passion burnout. Now, this is very personal because the passion burnout, when you have passion, it is the thing that keeps you ticking. It is the thing that makes you do what you do when no one's around. It is your passion. But let me help you real good that if you don't manage that passion, you will find yourself going to the umpteenth degree, and then you all of a sudden have a withdrawal. Yes, and you'll find yourself saying, you know what, let somebody else do it. You know what, I've done my share. I've carried my share of the load. And it's on the very thing that you care the most about. And so what I'm saying to you today is that you can be doing a good thing, but if you don't keep it in perspective, you will find yourself the very thing that you love the most saying, I just need to step away from this because I'm at my breaking point. I'm at my wit's end. Listen, I've given too much and I've pushed too hard, and I don't have anything else to give, and I don't have anything else to push from. My friend, when you get to that crossroad, I want to submit to you that you have encountered what is called a passion burnout. For every human being, there is something. I was just talking to a young man just this week, and he said, Pastor, I just don't know how to figure out my passion. I want to talk to somebody today. There's a book called The Path, by the way, by an author named Sarah. She talks about one of the best ways to figure out your passion is to figure out that thing that you love to do the most, and it gives you the most satisfying feeling. Can I talk with you just for a moment? There are some people who have the gift of hospitality. Like when you're in their presence, it doesn't bother them at all. It comes natural for them to be hospitable. But I can submit to you at the same time that if you don't put some parameters around it, you will get to a place that even though hospitality is what makes you feel good, If you don't put some parameters around it, you'll get to the place to where hospitality becomes a burden. Oh, can I talk good to somebody on a Saturday morning? That the thing that you love the most should make you feel blessed and not burdened. Let me talk to somebody. I want you to assess where you are and what you do. Does it make you feel that you are blessed? You have this wonderful, warm feeling on the inside? Or do you feel like, man, listen, I like this, but I ain't sure I can keep this up? It is an indicator that your space is a space of burnout. And then lastly, it is the most obvious, and the eighth kind of burnout is a physical burnout. Let me tell you, I've seen it in the workspace. I've seen it in the church space. I've even seen it in the family space. You know what? I've seen people in the community who were community advocates and community soldiers. And guess what? At some point, you say, well, where is that? Listen, they experience some physical burnout. When you get physical burnout, it is the worst because it now is a outward physical evidence base. My body is going through revulsions. I have depleted my life force. And we're going to show you some of those symptoms here just a second, because I want you to be able to do your own self-evaluation. You're too good at what you do, and you've given too much at what you've done to get in a burnout space and then find yourself depleted. And it's actually now showing physically. People see that you don't have the energy you used to have. They see that you're having these outward expressions that become very obvious that there's something going on, and you know within yourself, listen, I'm at a place where I feel burnout. So these are the 8 kinds of burnouts. I pray that you will go back to the sessions later and review these. Next slide. I want to move just a little bit further, because today your assignment is to do a self-assessment. What that simply means is take that mirror and don't turn it outward, but flip it around and look at yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's about you, how you can best be the best you that you can possibly be. Well, when you take this assessment, I want you to agree to take a pause just for a moment, and we can see how we can increase your self-awareness of these types of burnouts and how they show up for you. Now, I want you to know that this will help you be more empowered. The goal here is to help you to be more empowered and to see and feel the signs or symptoms before you get to the point of physical burnout. Then I want you to try this harmonizing practice, which is also here on this slide, to identify which kind of burnout you may currently be experiencing or what you need to reverse. Oh my goodness, because I got some good news for you. You can reverse the burnout. All right, so listen, the self-awareness is, what are your burnout signals? So what we do is we ask these probing questions that you and only you can answer. For example, which kinds of burnouts have I experienced? Is it mental? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it relational? Is it I want you to go and assess those 8 burnout. And I want you to figure out which one best represents the space that you're in right now. And as the great quote says, to thine own self be true. This is about you and how you can be the best you that you can possibly be. There's a wonderful song in the Negro spirituals that says, it's not my mother, it's not my father, it's not my sister or my brother, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. I want to help you in this coaching series to figure out how you can be the best you that you can possibly be. You can ask, number one, which of those eight burnouts best represents the experience that you're having? And then number two, another probing question is, what are the signs or symptoms that I'm experiencing that represents these kinds of burnouts? When these occur, I want you to also use this harmonizing practice below to keep you from sliding further into burnout. Now, let's talk about this harmonizing practice, because the reality is it reverses the burnout slide. So if you just think about it, you're on a slide for a moment and you're sliding down, going down instead of going up. I want you to ask yourself, what do I need to receive? Did you catch it? You need to receive something to reverse the slide into physical burnout. That there is a space that is negative. Once you figure out what is lacking, then give yourself space or support to yourself no matter what. My friends, it's called harmonizing practice. First of all, you take a moment, you figure out which of these spaces best represent you, and then you figure out, what is it that I'm lacking that's keeping me sliding further down? And then you love yourself enough to invest in yourself. You know, I've been in ministry many years. I've been in leadership many years. And one of the things that is so sad is to see people, hear me when I say, they invest in everything, but then they won't invest in themselves. And I'm asking you today, love yourself enough to engage in this self-assessment. Figure out which space you're in. And then practice this harmonizing practice, which simply says, ask yourself, what do I need to receive? It's obvious that there is something that has got you sliding downward. And all you need to do is recognize it, identify it, and then figure out what resources you need or support you need, and then give it to yourself no matter what. The takeaway from this slide is three words: no matter what. Invest in yourself. Listen, it's a hard lesson, but we all have to come to that space. My friend, I don't care what people said. I don't care how they've treated you. I don't care how they have tried to prophesy over your life. I'm telling you right now, you deserve to be your best self. And that's their problem if they don't see your net value. I come to tell you today, according to the good book, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Don't make me get happy on a Saturday morning, because I want you to understand God put within you a valuable treasure. And I want to tell you something, it's worth investing in. So I hope you will take some time and engage in this self-assessment. It helps you be your best self. All right, next slide. My time is running out. And so I thought I would just try to give someone who says, I'm not on the balance side, Williams, I'm on the burnout side. But can I tell you medically that there are 12 stages that an individual goes through when you deal with burnout? I want you to understand something, that there are people in different stages and they don't even know it. So let's talk about it for a moment today. Stage one, you feel there is a strong need to prove yourself. Am I talking to anyone today? Because sometimes people, they give and give and give, and then they feel like they got to always be proving themselves. My friend, if you're finding yourself always having to prove yourself, it is a sign that you're in the early stages of burnout. Stage two says you keep working harder and harder to achieve this. Do you see what's happening? You're going further and further down that slide. It's the same thing that I was telling you about the harmonizing stages, that you have the harmonizing exercise, that you got to stop the downward slope before you can help yourself. And sometimes People keep going further and further and further down, and they never stop the sliding. You first have to stop the sliding. And how you stop the sliding is you start recognizing the stages of burnout. Number one, you feel that there's a strong need to prove yourself. And at some point, you good, you know you're good, and you just do you. But no, that's not, no, it don't represent the stage you're in. Stage number two, you keep working harder and harder to achieve this. And I need to give you a news flash. Breaking news. There are some people, even Jesus can't please. Did you hear what I just said? So I want to help you real good. You need to recognize who you are, whose you are, and what your skills are. And stage three, listen to this. You begin to neglect your own needs even more. You know why? Because you're sliding further on that slide, trying to make sure that you can please someone who, quite frankly, I have said this in other sessions, you know, some people have some internal issues within them and they need to be working on their own burnout, but instead they got their eyes over on you. And if you're not real careful, you will be wasting energy on a situation that you can't even control. Oh, there it is. I've been waiting all morning to tell you something. Listen, some of these situations, they are completely out of your control. And that's why you don't want to keep sliding further and further down. Stage three says you slide so much, so fast, so often until you neglect your own self and your own needs. Am I talking good to anybody? Too busy trying to get affirmations from folk that the reality is they're never going to give you your due. You do realize that. Stage four, I got to move my time. Listen, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this session on today. So be clear, this will be followed up on upcoming sessions. Stage number four, you are conflicted and blame others or situations. You know that it is a stage of burnout and you're sliding down that slide when you are conflicted. Listen, it becomes confusing. You starting to not be able to make sense out of it. And then the worst part of all, you turn it into a blame game. And everybody else now is contributing but you. I've seen people like that. You know, can I just tell you, there are people that in this world, they may even be in your circle. They may even be in your family. Oh, yes. And they may even be in your church that no matter what the situation is, they never have anything to do with it. It's always somebody else. And I want to submit to you that that's a fourth stage medically, they say, of someone going into burnout. Stage five, you change your values to focus on more work. My friend, I want to tell you something. Every person should have their non-negotiables. I'm trying to give somebody some strong coaching session today because the reality is that no matter what you're going through, that listen, sometimes we pray, and here's a great prayer. Lord, help me to change things around me. And then when it comes to the point that I can't change things around me, help me to change me. Listen, it is a wonderful place that you don't change who you are, your core values. That's what I'm talking about. But you can work on yourself to make sure that you're the best self that you can be. But don't lose your values in the process. Like I know some people that just have strong values and they're so far sliding down that burnout slide until they've lost their values. And I want to just challenge you today. Take a moment and go back and engage that self-assessment. Stage number six, you deny the problems that arise due to work stress. So for example, you have headaches and you just say, you know what, it's allergies. No, my friend, it's not the allergies. Allergies may be a byproduct of the burnout, which is manifesting itself by way of a headache. Let me give you another one, fatigue. I mean, there's a whole long list of them. We're going to talk about some in just a little bit. Hopefully we'll get to them in this session, but if not, I promise you that's what we're going to focus on as well. What are those symptoms that manifest themselves as a result of you going too far on the other side? Stage 7 says you withdraw from social life and your family as well. Like, listen, I know people, they just simply check out. They're so far in that stage of burnout until it has them feeling like they and they alone are the only ones that deserve to be in that space. And I've seen it. I've seen it in communities. I've seen it in churches. And you know, when you see them, it's like the person has a shell. They're there, but there is no human emotion with the person. You speak to them, it's like you're looking clean through the person. You know why? Because the person is so checked out. Hear me when I say these words. They're so checked out. They're so burnt out until they're just going through the motions. I've seen people like this. And if that's your lot on today, I want to challenge you that there is hope. And the first thing you have to do is engage that assessment to figure out how you stop the sliding. That's the takeaway from these 10 stages. Stage 8, your behavior changes, which upsets your loved ones. Well, you know, you're moody, sharp, tongue, snappy. Just go off for no apparent reason. And this is the one that I try to share with people. Like, if you don't really stop the sliding, the most basic, simple thing will manifest in the most ugliest way. I want to talk to somebody. It's dangerous to keep sliding downward in the stages of burnout because it only gets worse. And I've seen good, solid people do some stupid things only because they were sliding so far down that burnout slide. I want to tell you, stage 9, depersonalization happens. You don't feel like yourself. You've seen it. You've heard people say, listen, I just don't feel my best self right now. I just feel like I'm going through some things. Well, those things have a name for them, and it's called burnout. You got to be real careful that you don't become so detached from life and from friends and from church and from community that you feel like you're just going through the motions and you don't have any expression at all. Then stage number 10, my time is running out. Stage number 10, you feel empty and numb. Oh, am I talking good to anybody today? Substance abuse can even occur. Listen, I use this sermon in Psalms 142. You ought to read it sometime. David found himself in a dark, damp cave, and he was running from Saul. And the good book says he was down there because he felt he was trying to seek some level of safety. And can I tell you something? Sometimes, hear me when I say, I counsel people all the time, that the safety haven that you sought ultimately becomes, instead of a place of protection, a place of abuse and addiction. I've seen it. You have too. Good, solid people. They have such a traumatic event. It sends them in a downward spiral. They try one drink to say, I just need a stiff drink to calm me down, only to discover that now the substance abuse, instead of being their palace, is their prison. I want to talk to somebody today that you have to stop the sliding. I cannot say it enough times. When you're in a state of burnout, what's basically happening is you're sliding away from your best self, and you ultimately go down to stage number 12. And I want to help somebody that's sliding this morning. The reality is that there is hope and that there is a reverse to that sliding. I just want to submit to you that if you are feeling empty and numb and you've turned to some substance abuse, I want to submit to you that there is help and you should seek out some level of a support group. Now, stage 11 is you slid so far until now. Stage 11 says you feel depressed, lost, and completely exhausted. It's like you are a, just a limp dish rag that has no form, no structure, no anything. It just conforms to whatever it's put in front of or put on. I want to tell somebody today that depression is not healthy and it is not allowing you to be your best self. But I got some good news for you. There are many people that have hit the bottom of depression, but I like to tell you that you have the ability to get back. Now, and then finally, stage 12, you mentally and physically collapse. You're at what we call full burnout. My friends, these are the stages of burnout. Now, my time is up for today. I want you to please try to join us again. Let me see if I got time for one more slide. I got about another minute and a half here. So we'll revisit this. This is where I want to close at today. There are symptoms that you should look for. I wanted to at least give you some symptoms. Number one, if you feel exhausted throughout the day, it's one thing to be exhausted and you know why you're exhausted because you stayed up all night. That's one thing. But if you cannot contribute to the exhaustion, my friends, it is a symptom or a sign of burnout. This notion of feeling frequently sick, not really being able to put your finger on why you're feeling sick, or you fall to this sickness feeling and you can't explain it. Number three, you got a low mood. Like it's one thing to wake up and say, boy, it's Monday morning. I got the Monday morning blues, but you shouldn't have the Monday morning blues Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. My friend, there's something going on that's draining your energy, and you should look to getting some level of support. Now, number four is a weight loss or either weight gain. I've seen it go both ways. A person you can't control your weight. I would submit to you that you should assess yourself or go see someone to assess you to see if you having burnout syndromes. I can tell you medically, hypertension, it affects your blood pressure. Being in a burnout stage, just constant feeling that way. Yes, it's going to affect your blood pressure as well. You feel low self-esteem. These are signs that you should look to have somebody assess you. You feel absenteeism. You don't feel like being a part of anything or anyone. There's this feeling of anxiety, always feeling nervous, like somebody's trying to get after you, somebody's getting ready to do something to you. Listen, these are all signs or symptoms of burnout syndrome. Low commitment to work. You're there, but you're not really there. And you have to ask yourself, what percentage of presence am I? If you're at work and you're only 10% present, that's a problem. And there's something causing you to feel that low commitment. And then finally, the ultimate is number 10, reduce performance and productivity. You know better than anyone else what your deliverables are, how you're able to deliver them. I want to stop right here. But there is a phrase I want to lead with you. My time is up today. You'll hear me talk about this every session on burnout, and that is put your mask on first. Listen, self-care is not an option. It's a necessity. I want to talk to someone today to tell you that you're worth investing. And I want to ask you, as my time draws near on this Saturday morning, find your best self. And sometimes you have to do that by giving self-care to you. I want to tell you my last few minutes, as a faith leader, we're always pouring in. And I had to make a conscious choice that a pitcher can only pour out what's been poured in. And I made a conscious choice. I checked out from work, checked out from church, checked out from family. And I told everyone, I got to go refill my pitcher. I want to challenge somebody today. Assess yourself. You deserve that. And I'm asking you to join me in this coaching series. We'll be back next week to talk more in detail about some more signs. Listen, we got some best-selling books for you to go out and purchase, and self-helps to help you, workbooks to help you to work through it as well. I promise you, we've got them for you. And all I want you to do is stick with me, because at the end of the day, you deserve to be your best self. Can I pray with you today? Listen, God, thank you for another wonderful session that we've allowed to gather together. I pray, Father, that we've used this time with good stewardship, that said something to someone, or either prayed some prayer that gave someone some inspiration, that this too shall pass, and that this is not the end of the story, that this is only another chapter, and for someone, their best days are ahead of them. I give you praise. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. Hey, listen, it's another Saturday. I want to thank you again for hanging out with us. Join us next week. We're going to go a little bit deeper on this thing called symptoms of burnout. Until then,